Jones, look at that balance. Here comes the Cardinal blitz. Geno Smith, light spiral, intercepted by Tyler. We're back.
Well, it's Monday night, a new week has begun. I turn on
Saw that coming, and Daffy's coming over after getting that hand hit. And then Shaq Barrett plays, looking at that hand.
The biggest game each week is there.
The touchdown. We saw Philip Lindsay come off the field indicating an issue with his right hand. You can see right there.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? We're ready. Are you ready for some football? A Monday night party. Hey, this is rockin' random, Hank. Ready to get the good time started. We've got the
Okay, welcome to week 7 of Are You Ready for a Podcast, the official podcast of Are You Ready for Some Football, Fantasy Football League. I'm your host, Joe. I'm joined by Parker as always. How's it going?
It's going well. Got a very important win this week.
I agree. We're recording this on Wednesday night. Pelicans just won by 25 against the Nets. We're going 82-0. So lock in your bets right now, and let's ride the wave. And also we played some fantasy football games, and we'll get to that. So we're gonna try to make this quick. We are recording pretty late here. So so our first matchup of the week was Dan getting a huge win against Zach. This was Dan put up 143 to 103. His team was just firing on all cylinders. Joe Burrow finally kind of came into his own. Him and Jamar returning to the Superdome, as you predicted last week, Parker, was dynamite for Dan. And that kind of carried him. Zach, we know about his high-end talent. They played pretty well. All of his top end guys, they were his only non-quarterbacks to be in double digits. But I think there's some depth concerns that are popping up for him for sure. And I do kind of worry a little bit how much that Diggs, Dalvin, and Saquon can carry him if the rest of the team kind of isn't pulling their weight. But great one for Dan here.
Yeah. I think my takeaways kind of from both of these teams. I think for Dan, maybe we both of us kind of have been missing what's been right under our nose this whole time, which is that Dan is developing some consistency, and now this is a first kind of spike week of the year for him, and maybe his team's a little better than we thought. This is a good win for him and for Zach. I'm not too worried about his team, but this is his second straight week losing with the fourth most points. He's been pretty unlucky on the year for the last several weeks after starting out very lucky, and he's now actually below his projected wins for the year. So I think that's something to be concerned about for Zach, but he's been consistent. His team's been good. I think this week was more about Dan winning it than Zach losing it, and it was more about seeing the upside of Dan's team, which maybe I didn't see before with the Burrow Chase stack, and now looking like elite options at other positions as well.
Yeah, and then I agree. I think Dan's team is I was very impressed, and you were talking it up last week over your team, and I think they're he certainly backed up that argument coming out this week. Our next matchup was me getting a much needed win against Nick. Broke my 3-game losing streak. Really blew him out, 135 to 69.9. For me, I think it was nice to see just kind of I had double-digit performances from every one of my players. I think I only scored 2 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers threw a touchdown, and Deion Jackson scored a touchdown. I don't think anybody else scored on my team. So that was actually really nice to see, to put up 135 with only 2 touchdowns. Just had a ton of receptions. But I think Deion Jackson was kind of the key here. I picked him up after Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor were declared out. So I needed I needed to plug in somebody, or else I was probably going to start Elijah Moore, who goosed. Would have won anyway, but that was like a 23-point difference. So nice win for my team. I don't think my season saved or anything, but it was a good win. Nick, again, I said it last week after kind of his season saving win. against Morgan, or against Tom, whoever we beat, Thomas. Sorry. That you know, I thought that kind of saved the season, and you know, he just kind of came right back out, and there was a major letdown. And his running backs, he can't find consistency at his running back position, and I think that's just such a huge problem for him.
Yeah. Once again, I think Tom, you know, we kind of know what we know about Nick's team. This has been a recurrent problem for him. The running back position, his receivers had a big letdown week this week, but for the most part, his running backs have been the issue, and I think that's more of our issue going forward. For you, you know, this was nice to see. Obviously, your team's been kind of underwhelming thus far, but it looks like ETN's kind of taken over. The Deion Jackson play was great, and then to have double digits down the board for your entire team is, you know, a good, solid, all-around effort. Like you said, not too many touchdowns, and you still end up with 135 points. So really encouraging performance from you this week, and obviously disaster for Nick, kind of all around. Not much else to add. You know, you're going to have bad weeks, and this was that week for Nick.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I don't think I would say more concerning for Nick's team than encouraging for mine. I still think I think that was a little bit season saving, because I think at 1-5 my season's pretty much done. But I would be worried if I was Nick. I think he's, you know, the talent is there. It just hasn't really gelled yet. So our next matchup was Thomas and Austin. Honestly, our scoring went way down after me and Dan. So Thomas put a 105 and was our third highest scorer this week. And he beat Austin by 10. Austin just continues to get crushed. I think we talked about it a little bit while we were recording on Thursday night. He just continues to get crushed by his quarterback position. What is it, like 4 out of 6 weeks he's had double digit or single digit performances?
I don't think he's had double digits all year.
No, I think 11 was his highest, he said.
Maybe so, yeah. Maybe
or 5 out of 6 weeks, something like that.
His quarterback's been terrible.
Yeah, his quarterback scoring has been awful. Yeah, his running backs, you know, Kamara had another nice game, but I still don't love his running back position. You know, but for Thomas, I think, you know, we kind of were very down on his team. I think you had him last. I had him 11th last week. I had him last the week before that. You know, things have not looked good since the Javonte Williams injury, and so it's nice to score over 100 points. You know, to get, you know, a pretty decent win. You know, he got 2 good games, or I mean, he got 2 touchdowns out of Allen Robinson and Juju, so that was able to you know, that kind of upped his wide receiver production for the week. And then, you know, his running backs were solid, or the 2 that played, Joe Mixon and Brees. I think Brees is really good. I think he's got a really good running back trio, but his receivers are still terrible. I think those are aberration games from Allen Robinson and Juju, and I still don't trust him at all. And obviously, I think his bench running backs are awful, and he has far and away the worst bench in the league. But again, kind of, I guess that win kind of kept him alive, because again, 1-5, and you're pretty much looking at a lost season. So I guess good for him. But you know, I would say more, again, kind of like the last matchup, I would say a little more concerning for Austin than great for Thomas.
I kind of disagree with that. I think this is a win that makes me feel a lot better about Thomas's team. I think Breece Hall has been stepping up, like you mentioned, and finally we saw some life out of his receivers, which was our big concern. For Austin, you know, the quarterback thing, he will figure out. He's not going to be getting single-digit performances from his quarterbacks all year. Hopefully, 2 is the answer. But, you know, I think at some point he'll figure that out. And he's got good players that just had bad weeks this week. This is one down week for him. I think it's, to me, a good win for Thomas and just a down week for Austin. Those are going to happen. You know, he's in a decent spot here at 3-3 and right in the thick of playoff contention, although he's kind of going downhill with Cam Akers also not looking good, and the Michael Thomas situation not really having much movement. So there are some red flags for Austin, but the team that I changed my opinion on more was Thomas for sure.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I guess we can get to it in power rankings, but I was decently. I mean, I'm kind of middle of the road on Austin's team, but I still am pretty low on Thomas's. I think those receiver performances were pretty aberrational.
Oh,
for the
I'm
year.
still pretty low, but I don't
Yeah.
think by far the worst team in the league anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think it was last week, but yeah. So our next matchup is Colin versus Ben. Colin really I hesitate to say only a 14-point win, but he only won by 14. Ben still has yet to he still has only one game over 90 points. So Colin wins 102 to 88. Just I don't know. I think not Colin's best performance. Obviously, his team is a lot higher upside. Didn't have Amon-Ra or Hawkinson. And his team is usually higher upside. But when you're playing against Ben, you don't need these weeks. So I think that's a good sign that or it was good, I guess, scheduling luck that he was able to play Ben in one of these, I think, down weeks for him, which is still over 100 points, which is obviously very impressive. And then for Ben, obviously he got those 2 wins, but I don't really. I'm still struggling to see a path forward. 2-4 is not a great place to be in. Still, his upside is just awful. He didn't have James Conner this week, I guess, but and he will get DeAndre Hopkins back. That'll help moving forward. But man, he's got a lot of ground to make up.
Yeah, I agree. This is a big red flag for Ben. He just continues to have unimpressive week after unimpressive week. Now he's gonna have to start dealing with bye weeks as they come. And he's got a lot of ground to make up. For Colin, like you said, wasn't his most impressive week, but he's had a bunch of them in a row. So this week of scoring the 5th most points in the league is nothing to be concerned about. He does have the Hollywood Brown injury, which kind of happened during this game that'll hurt his depth a little bit, but he made that trade with Ben previously, the Mahomes deal, to get better wide receiver depth. So that's a place that he fortunately is kind of stocked up on for now. So it really, really doesn't hurt him that bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think I think Colin. Yeah, that's a good point. I think the trade is now definitely in hindsight now was a good move. I didn't necessarily agree with like the strategy of it at the time. I would have used it to upgrade at a position, but I mean, now I think this is where it's going to pay dividends for sure. So we'll get to now the 2 very low scoring matchups of the week that came down to Sunday night and then Monday night. So the first one was you and Morgan. You were able to win with 80 points, which was 8th most in the league this week. And you barely beat Morgan, 80.1 to 78.9. And so Morgan just needed I think Morgan just needed like 20 from Jalen Hurts and Michael Gallup on Sunday night to beat you. He was not able to get it, fell just a couple points short. And actually, well, never mind. He lost by 1.2 or whatever. I thought it was closer than that. He had gotten like a point taken away. So I guess we'll get your thoughts here and all your emotions throughout Sunday.
Yeah, this was a big week for my team. With my upcoming schedule, I really felt like this was a must-win game. And for much of the day, it really seemed like it was going to be a loss. I was fully prepared to come on this podcast and say that this is another lost season, that I just don't have it anymore, and that just a big boohoo, ready for next year thing. And I think a lot of that is still true. Obviously, I scored 80 points. I definitely deserve to lose this one. But when you can win these close games, these are huge. If you can win a week with 80 points and a negative performance by your defense, that goes a long way towards the end of the year. I'm at 3-3. I have a little bit of leeway now with the tough upcoming schedule that maybe I didn't have before. So obviously this is a huge season altering win for me. That Jalen Hurts, pretty good game, but the Michael Gallup sort of disappearance came at the perfect time for me. And despite the injuries and the bye week for Brandon Cooks, to be able to scrap out a win is huge for me. I think for Morgan, I kind of feel the same about his team. His team's fine. This was a bad performance, but he was super banged up this week and had Dameon Pierce on bye. So it doesn't necessarily make me feel a lot worse about him, but it makes me feel a lot better about my team for sure.
Yeah, I think in hindsight, I think the under definitely would have been a play to make with all of y'all's injuries. I mean, you were down 3 starters. He was down 2 starters. Yeah, I think just honestly, and if he had been down a third starter, he would have won, because had T. Higgins been declared out, he would have put in Donovan Peoples-Jones, and that would have won him the game. So obviously a bit fortunate there. And yeah, I completely agree. I think, you know, you would have been 2-4 going up against this gauntlet of a stretch. Obviously you get Colin this week, which is no easy feat. And so yeah, that definitely just kind of, I think a win like that definitely changes the mood in the locker room a whole lot. And so maybe your team rallies, and maybe now you beat Colin when, you know, you feel like you didn't have a chance earlier with low morale. But so I guess we'll see this that week. We'll get to that in picks. But our last match of the week, just an absolute stunner here of the 2 lowest scores in the week this week, coming from Hunter and Grant, who have been 2 top 3 teams for both of us for the last few weeks. I just couldn't believe it, and that neither of them were, or Hunter didn't have Derrick Henry or Josh Jacobs. So I think we were all taking Grant, but I don't think anybody could have seen 128 points being the total here. You know, they just neither got really anything from Grant got a good Leonard game. You know, Justin Jefferson was okay. Gabe Davis caught a touchdown, but yeah, just 2 really, really bad performances. Grant needed like 11 from Cortland Sutton going into Monday night. Just wasn't able to get it. You know, that was a really ugly game, and just Russell Wilson's cooked. And so they yeah, I'm just stunned. Obviously a good one for Hunter. Well, not a good one for Hunter, but he did win, and he stayed undefeated. So I guess that kind of speaks to Hunter's winning pedigree. You know, normally Grant wins these types of low scoring games and gets good opponent points against luck, but you know, this week it was Hunter.
Yeah, you know, for Hunter, had some bye week trouble. I didn't think his floor was this low, even with the bye weeks. I kind of think I changed my perception of the floor of both of these teams after this game. But you're right; it's one of these games that you feel super fortunate to win, and that, you know, Hunter now 6-0, essentially virtually locked up a playoff spot already, and you know, has a nice 2-game cushion for a bye. So that's great for him. Now he's through Derrick Henry's bye week, and Josh Jacobs' bye week, and so great position for Hunter to be in to win this game. And for Grant, you know, you're going to have these weeks. I mean, this is, you know, this just happens. I think he's, so far I'm going to keep my opinion before this game that he's still a good team and that this is just a bad week.
Yeah, no, I get that. I was more stunned. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, Josh Jacobs has pretty much surpassed Aaron Jones as Hunter's second best running back, with Aaron Jones' rough start to the year. So, you know, to win without your top 2 running backs is really, really impressive. And so Hunter at 6-0 is, I mean, I would basically pencil him in already to one of those 2 buys. And so he would only need to win 2 playoff games to win his first championship, but obviously we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. So we will move on to power rankings. So if you want to go ahead with yours, and we will compare and contrast.
Yeah. So I'll just start at the top. I actually made a shift here. Despite Hunter getting the win, I have Colin at number 1, Hunter down to number 2. Kept Grant at number 3. One of my biggest probably my biggest rider is Dan jumping to the number 4 spot. I left Zach at 5. I have you up to 6, Austin at 7, Morgan at 8, Nick at 9. I'm still at 10. And then I have Thomas at 11, Ben now down to 12.
Okay. So who'd you have at 9? Nick?
Yep.
Okay, Nick at 9. Okay. I have so I kept Hunter at 1, I think, and until I think I did this with Grant last year while he was undefeated. I think until he loses, I'm just gonna keep him at 1. I do think he has a higher like overall trade value than Colin also. Colin's at 255, Hunter is at 256.5. So not that really means a ton. So I have Colin at 2, Grant at 3. After that, it just gets really messy. So I did a little bit of record, a little bit of who beat who, and then I have Zach still kind of with his top 3 guys. I know I was talking about his depth, but kind of it's really hazy from 4 to about 10 here. I have you at 5. I have Morgan at 6. I would have switched that had, you know, things gone differently. I actually would have had Morgan at 4 had he won. But he didn't. And then Nick at 7, Dan at 8, Austin at 9, myself at 10, Thomas at 11, and Ben at 12. So a lot of differences, I think, this week, and that 4 through 10. I guess our biggest ones would be, well, me. You have me at 6. I have me at 10.
Dan,
And then
me.
Dan, I have at 8. You have at 4. So those are the 2 biggest ones. So I guess we can start with Dan. Obviously, that's a big move up for you. So what do you see there?
Yeah, I think that, you know, maybe this is something that I should have caught on to earlier. Obviously, the 145-point week kind of underscores it. But, you know, Dan's team is no joke. He's 3rd in scoring. He's if we just look at estimated wins, what the record should be, he's 3rd in that as well. I think behind Colin and Hunter, who have been pretty dominant, Dan probably has the next best resume, although his record is worse than Grant's. You know, his performance has actually been better than Grant's. He's just been a little bit unlucky, and so that's why we didn't see this coming. I think that, like I said, that what changed for me was the perception of his ceiling, but I thought he had a consistent floor already. And I was just looking at his lineup, and I was like, I mean, Ramondre now I think is a good running back 1. That was my big question before, and then he's got Pollard, Hunt, some players he can start at running back 2. He's got great receiver depth, and then he's got top end guys as well with Chase and Kelsey, and even Godwin. So I think that this alters my perception on Dan significantly, and I think that he's fairly comfortably my 4th best team. I think that the gap between him and Zach in my rankings is pretty significant.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I still don't fully see it. I think Ramondre is very good, but has a little bit of a shelf life on his upside with Damien Harris's impending return. I guess I think the big X factor is Chris Godwin, because, you know, you've got Ramondre, I don't love the other running backs, but you've got, in theory, startable running backs. You've got Kelsey and Jamar, who are, you know, the number 1 tight end and a certified stud receiver. Burrow's a solid quarterback. So I think if you can get a good second receiver in Godwin, obviously he's been hurt for a lot of the year, but, you know, he's getting healthy. And so if his production returns to what it has in previous seasons when he's been healthy, I think that's a big factor for him. I think that would certainly help him continue to move up in my rankings. I'm a little hesitant and don't quite see it yet. There's still really like on his team, like Kelsey, Ramondre, and Jamar. Let
me just put it this way. You had Nick at 7, Dan at 8. You know, I think Burrow and Herbert are pretty much equivalent at this point.
Yep.
I think if we compare Ramondre and Pollard to Zeke and AJ Dillon, I'd probably take Ramondre and Pollard in that situation. But
I mean, I think it's pretty close.
And then Jamar is, you know, pretty equivalent to Devontae Adams. If we think that Godwin can be in the ballpark of AJ Brown, which I don't think is out of the question.
I don't think he will be.
And
then I don't think it's flexes, and then I still trust Nick's flexes more.
Yeah, but Kelsey's a huge leg up over Dalton Schultz, massively.
No, that's true.
And he's got a game on him.
He does have a game on him, but Nick beat him in week 1. So he'll have the tiebreaker if they have, or obviously, well, he'll have that advantage in all the tiebreak records if they end up with the same record. But yeah, I'm waiting. I think things have just been gradually not going as well for Nick. I don't think they've completely like fallen off. So I still kind of have faith in some of his worst guys to turn it around a little bit. And then I really believe in receivers. I really believe in Devontae. I love Devontae and AJ. I think that's the best wide receiver duo in the league. and then and then he has Mike Williams. I still think is good, and Mike Evans. I think he has a better. I think he has the more reliable Bucks receiver between the two of them, and then he's got Christian Kirk too. So like, I still trust him. I still think he'll probably make use of those 5 to make a trade at some point for a running back. And so yeah, I think Dak coming back will help Zeke. So I'm still not hitting the panic button on Nick's team. I still think it's pretty good. And
The other
he's
point on
game
Dan,
back.
before we move on to Dink totally, my other point on Dan is that he's got 3 games left against Ben and Thomas. So you can
That's true.
essentially consider him 3-6 already. I mean,
That's true. He is in the easier division. Yeah, he is in the Nick's in the hard division. He's in the easy division. That's fair.
Yeah, I think I have Dan pretty comfortably at 4. Who else did you want to talk about? You?
Well, you have me at 6. I have me at 10. There's not. I guess I've kind of made my my points clear.
Yeah, I think I'm the one who changed here because I had you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. Yeah, like I still have 2 running backs. One of them whom does not score any touchdowns. I don't see the upside with Travis Etienne. I think he's established a pretty decent floor. I don't see the upside at all. Obviously, McCaffrey's really good. Then 3 receivers who are good, but none of them are elite. And so, and that's just kind of my team. I'm streaming quarterbacks, I'm streaming tight ends. So yeah, that's kind of think it's very good. And so I did have a great week. My team picked up starting running back and team caught a lot of passes, and so I had a great week. But I don't think top to bottom I'm gonna get the double week, and then I think there will still be weeks where I lack in the touchdown department.
My thing on your team, I think with Dan's team, I think it's maybe been there and we've just been missing it. With your team, I think your team is ascending. I think that McCaffrey, maybe we were a little bit questionable about at the beginning of the year. Those questions have been answered. He's the best player in fantasy, hands down by far. You wouldn't trade him for anyone head to head. I know that to be true. The receivers have been great all year. You have 3 top 18 receivers right now, including.
I think I might trade him for Derrick Henry.
Well, that'd be stupid. You have 3 top 18 receivers right now, including Pittman, who missed the game. And I think so. If you can figure the quarterback thing out, if Tonyan can step up to be consistent, I think your ceiling is very high, as we saw this week with the big spike week. Obviously you're gonna have some things to figure out with your bye weeks, but I think there's a lot to like with your team. You still don't really have the depth, but 3 solid receivers and 2 really good running backs, and what appears to be startable tight end is enough to make you the 6th best team in the league, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, that's my point. I have terrible depth, and I think Michael Pittman's missed 1 game, and I think that's been my only injury, and I haven't had bye weeks yet, and so I know I have, again, you're gonna bring up the schedule. Yeah, I know. So these 2 weeks coming up are very key for my team. If I'm not 4-4, if I don't beat Thomas, I don't beat Ben, I think my season's over. So these 2 weeks coming up are very important. But yeah, I still don't think I have the depth to sustain, certainly not a running back bye week or injury. And even the receiver ones, I am just going to the waiver wire to hunt for, a receiver I think that can score a touchdown that week. So, I hate my depth, and I think that's going to be a problem for me going forward.
Okay. That's the disagreement there. And then you have my team up at 5. I think you had me up there last week. Something like that. You had me at 8 last week.
I had you at 8 last week.
Yeah, you moved me up 3 spots. You have to explain that after this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think think Daryl being the starter is big. They kicked Cam Akers' ass to the curb. So now you got Daryl there. And that was obviously a huge issue for you as running back 2. So that's at least.
We haven't traded for McCaffrey yet.
Well, we'll see about that. I mean, that would suck for both of us, I think.
Yeah, true. Facts.
And then so I for the moment I think that's an okay option at running back 2. Still have Kupp. I think I would trade McCaffrey for Kupp in a vacuum. I wouldn't do it with my running back situation, but if all things were equal, I would. But so obviously Kupp is obviously very valuable. And And yeah, like I said, 4 through 10 was pretty close for me. It kind of got all jumbled up this week. But you got Singletary, and I still believe in Olave a lot. You just he'll be back to play this week against the Cardinals. I think he'll have a big game. I think I'm still pretty. I still like your team, and you still have you'll still have 1 week where you're able to start Taysom when he starts at quarterback at your tight end spot. So you'll be able to get that for a week.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it was a huge win for me to at least give me a chance. But I've got Colin and then Hunter the next 2 weeks. I still play Colin again after that. And then neither of those include week 14, when I have an absolute bye week nightmare. I won't even have enough players to start that week. So essentially you can add 4 losses. So I'm really 3-7 right now.
If you add 4 losses and we're through 10 weeks and you're 3-7, then I'll move you down. But we haven't gotten there yet.
Week 14, I'm going to have Jonathan Taylor, Alan Lazard, Chris Olave, Kyle Pitts, Taysom Hill, and Khalil Herbert on bye. So I don't see how I could possibly win that week.
Well, that's why they play the games, isn't it? I mean,
and then I'm certainly not beating Hunter or Colin. So that's 4 losses right there.
So you're at best 7-7 is what you're saying.
Yeah, I literally need to win every game the rest of the season that's not against Hunter or Colin or week 14.
Okay. I think that's a little ridiculous. I think your team is good, and I think you almost beat Hunter.
Look, if I can win one of these next 2 weeks, I'll agree with you.
You almost beat Hunter in like week 3. Why couldn't you do it again?
That was my chance. You don't get 2 chances to beat a good team. I already blew my 1 chance.
I think you do because you play them twice.
And then I guess the other thing just to discuss would be the 1 and 2. So I decided this week that Colin's team is just better than Hunter's team. His expected wins are better. Hunter beat him head to head, but Colin's been better throughout the year. Colin certainly does not have the floor that Hunter showed us this week, even with the loss. And right now, with his team the way it is, it's just by far the best team in the league. I don't have any questions about that. I think he does have. The one question you could ask would be running back depth. I think if he had an Eckler injury or if he had a Josh Allen injury, that would significantly change my outlook on his team. But for now, with the rosters the way they are, I think Colin's team is just clearly better than Hunter's team. I guess I'm assuming your argument is just the record that he's 2 games ahead.
I don't know. Well, I mean, if his team's better, why didn't he beat him?
I mean, he didn't beat him that 1 week, but he had the 2nd most points in the league that week.
And Hunter had the most points in the league. Anyway, he did lose Hollywood for the next 4 to 6 weeks, so he's gonna be without his 2nd best receiver. And then I know I still like with what Josh Jacobs was giving Hunter, and Jamal and some of this running back depth he has. Gabe Davis has been awesome the last couple of weeks. I think Hunter's upside is actually pretty good. I don't know what happened this week. I think Kyler will turn around too. Although Call of Duty is coming out like pretty soon, so maybe scratch that. I still think Hunter's team is really, really good. And I think they're pretty close, but Hunter has a 2-game advantage and beat him head to head. So
Colin's outscoring like 20 points a game this year.
Yeah, but that's all. He put up like the 180
That's
game.
massive. That's the same difference between Colin and Hunter in scoring is between Hunter, who's 2nd, and Austin, who's 10th. It's huge.
But most of that came from the 180 week where Colin's just running up the score.
Came from the 180 week.
What?
Not most of that came from the 180 week.
Well, most of the difference probably.
I mean, if you take the 180 week out of Colin's scoring, his average is still going to be much higher than Hunter's. Let me look.
Anyway, I think I think Colin, I don't know. I think Colin might be a little bit of a front runner. Hunter just goes out and wins games, and I can appreciate a team.
Yeah, Colin's still averaging 10 points better than Hunter, even without the 180 week.
and didn't do it when it counted. So I'm ranking Hunter 1 until he loses.
This is a wild take. Hunter's a fraud. No, I don't think he's a fraud. I think he's a really good team, but I think Coliseum's just better right now. It's just playing better right now.
I think they're clearly the two best teams. I think with Grant,
I mean, I think like,
Grant's a clear third. Grant's a clear third. I don't think he's up on their level yet with how bad his receivers or how disappointing his receivers have been. But those two teams, I think, are.
I'm still not super sold on Grant's running backs. I still don't love the Lenny Chubb, but they've been really good. I can't argue that. I think Hunter's team. You know, I'm a lower on Kyler than I was at the beginning of the year. I'm lower on Aaron Jones than I was in the beginning of the year. So I think that I don't know. I think Coliseum's just better right now.
That's fair enough, and I think
anyway,
I think Hunter's team, and I think Hunter's team beat, and I think Hunter's team beat Colin when they played on the field. So
that did happen. I agree, but they play again.
They do play again, and if Colin beats them, I think that will heavily factor into my decision.
All right, sounds good. Well, that'll do it for me.
Yeah, I think we said we were gonna keep it short, and then we went on for way too long because we had a ton of disagreements in the power ranking. So
that's the first time that's ever happened.
Yeah, and probably the last time too. So that'll do it for the recap, and we will be back after the break with an interview with Grant. Welcome back. We're now at our interview portion. We're joined by 2019 and 2020 DJ winner, 2021 DJ runner up, Grant. Grant, how's it going?
It's going good. Going good. Glad to be back.
Glad to have you. So normally we normally get people back or people on after a win. You know, we're running kind of thin because we've had most of the league on at this point. So we got you on after a tough loss to Hunter, where you are the lowest two scorers in the league. You know, you had Cortland Sutton, you needed 11 points out of him for Monday night. I mean, did you think in your heart of hearts, even though neither team performed well, that you were going to get that and be able to pull it out?
I mean, yeah, I had some faith in winning plenty of those kind of games. So I thought I'd get like a 30-yard touchdown on 3 catches or something stupid to barely win, but wasn't in the cards.
I think that's a reasonable thing to think, especially the week after Parker dropped Russell Wilson. I kind of was expecting
I was expecting a blow-up performance.
No, actually, I remember I was at the gym and they had the game up on the TV, and I saw like someone run in for a 30-yard touchdown for the Broncos. I was like, oh yeah, I bet I just won. And then I pulled out my phone. I was like, oh shit, it was some like no name tight end or something.
Greg Dulcich or some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. We were just talking about this before the recorded section, but that was your lowest score in the last 52 weeks. It's been since the beginning of 2019. Since you had a performance quite that bad. And that sort of speaks to the sustained success you've been having over the last few years. Despite Joe and I, you know, not being that high on your team preseason, were you happy with your team coming out the draft? Or do you think you've just had some breaks go your way this season? Or how are you feeling about the year, how it's shaping up so far?
So out of the draft, I mean, Dan can verify this. I was kind of complaining that I didn't really like my team that much because I didn't really have it that much. Like at the time, I thought I didn't have that much top end talent. But Chubb and Fournette both hit pretty well. And then Lamar started off amazing and has been pretty good since. But yeah, I wasn't like super happy because I honestly, like, this is the least prepped for a draft I've been in ages. And I was like, I think I mentioned when we were drafting that I was like going to have to make it work because that date like didn't really work for me. So I was at like out of town and I was like 7 White Claws deep before the draft started and going from my phone and not really knowing what was going on, but we made it out alive.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that coming out of it with the number 2 and number 5 running backs through 6 weeks wound up okay. But I mean, I guess compared to some of your recent teams, that's still a downgrade.
Yeah.
I
mean, yeah, I had you 6. Parker had you 8 in preseason, or 8th in the preseason power ranking. So I guess we weren't too high on your team, but you've been able to build out some pretty good running back depth with, you know, obviously your top 2 guys, and then Clyde and J.K. Dobbins. You know, have you have you thought about using that to make a move? Obviously, your receivers aren't the best. I'm not trying to negotiate with you or anything. I'm just
Yeah.
getting
So
I'm trying to get
yeah, I did for a little bit, but until my gunshot victim got back, I like had my roster.
I don't know,
I
yeah.
had a dilemma where I had 4 good running backs that were probably tradable, but I didn't have like a single other one on my roster because my bench was just like all wide receivers. So I was in a spot where like I could potentially make a trade, but then like I would go down to like 3 running backs, and if one person gets hurt, then I'm like looking rough for the rest of the year. So I kind of held back on it and tried to see if I could find anything, and then I'm probably a little bit more open now that I can play Robinson and fill in that as like a sub in.
Yeah, that's fair. I thought that I actually thought your receivers were okay preseason. I didn't realize that they were both going to be in maybe the worst ever offenses in the NFL. So DJ Moore and Cortland Sutton have kind of taken a nosedive, but it's been made up for by your running backs so far, especially with Leonard Fournette and Clyde just being like really, really consistent startable running backs, and Chubb too being like basically the best player in fantasy so far.
Yeah, the wide receivers. Normally, I do tend to lean heavy on the running backs, and then on the wide receivers, I like normally try to find a way to just like pick one up on the waiver wire. But turns out Joe Flacco was the value behind Garrett Wilson, who I spent up a lot for, and haven't really been able to fill in the wide receiver spot yet. But hoping DJ Moore gets traded or something. And
I think it could be okay.
So.
I think that the Garrett Wilson thing is like, it just depends on like if they're winning or losing. And it's like, I don't really trust the Jets to just regularly win games. So I think they'll have more games where they're playing from behind and they're forced to throw. It seems like NFL teams as a whole this year are just running way more. And so you like wide receivers, like I feel like in previous years, like last year and other years, you could just throw in like basically any wide receiver and get like 5 to 10 points, just like some random waiver wire guy as a floor with like a chance of a touchdown. And it doesn't really seem like that as much this year, which kind of has helped you in a way because Fournette and Chubb, who are like, I guess Fournette catches a ton of passes, but I don't think of him as a pass catcher because he's big. But Chubb's not really that much of a pass catcher, and Clyde like really hasn't been in the NFL, and Dobbins either. But like they've sort of benefited from the bunch of teams just pounding the run this year.
Well, yeah, I mean the Browns and the Ravens are like run heavy traditional teams, but yeah, you got to ETR to win in football.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's my main questions. I've been asking everyone who they think the best team in the league is this year. It seems like the consensus has been Hunter recently, but where do you stand on that, Grant?
No, I'm pretty certain it's Colin. Colin seems to have a pretty stacked lineup and puts up massive amounts of points every week, and so this goes back to last year too, where he was consistently putting up like heavy week after like big week after big week. So
yeah, he's averaging the most
good edge to Colin.
20. So maybe we shouldn't all be sure that it's Hunter. I agree. I think that's probably an accurate assessment. Any more questions, Joe?
I don't think so. I think we can get to picks. I think you said you wanted to end this a little early.
Yeah, try to make it a little more abbreviated. I guess my other thing would be, Grant, it looks like the first few weeks you got off to a hot start. As usual, seemed like it's been same old for the last few years. But then the last couple of weeks, obviously you were last in scoring this week, and you were 8th in scoring each of the 2 weeks before that. Seems like the team's kind of maybe hitting a wall. Do you think defenses around the league are finally catching up to you, or do you think this is just a temporary pause and you'll be back to the winning ways soon?
I think it's probably just a temporary pause. Gotta maybe make some lineup changes here and there because I've essentially not made a start sit decision all year and just rolled out with the same people. So
yeah,
maybe change something up there, but
I certainly wouldn't be that concerned about it. But anyway, yeah, we can get to picks, Joe.
Oh, well, actually, if we could, my last question, only because my year this year hasn't been going well. I just want to get like what Grant where Grant was and what he was going through in the championship last year. because
You want the
obviously
story?
that's about all I have to hold on to.
I'm still upset. So last year I would have won had I started. I had 2 defenses. I forget which one was which. Actually, no, it was I started the Bucks, and
It was, yeah, against the Jets, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so but I had the Bills defense all year, and I had been holding on to them, because I had enough lead right to where I could like just stash like random defenses and stuff for the playoffs, and I had been holding on to the Bills all year. And if I would have played the Bills, I would have won. But
Yeah, you would have won by like 7.
yeah, and so the Bucks played the Jets, and I was like, I forget who the Bills were playing, but I probably should lean that way. And then fucking I think that was when Antonio Brown like exploded and ramped off the field, and the game just went to shit. And so
Yeah, you
It's a-
also like. I mean, so Chubb was it was either the Sunday or the Monday night game.
Monday night, yeah.
It was Monday night.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But he had Aaron Jones on Sunday night, who Aaron Jones has scored like 1 million touchdowns in previous years on Grant's team against me. So I was really
Mhm.
scared about that. But then he didn't have a great game. And so I only needed like 6 from Chubb or something, 5.5.
yeah, and he like went out, like he got hurt, but then he came in and like barely passed you, and then just left the game again. So that was somewhat of
Yeah,
unfortunate.
I mean, I really won by 3 because of your stupid rules. But yeah,
Not my rules, our rules, Joe.
okay.
So yeah, so were you watching the Monday night game with Nick Chubb, Grant?
yeah, I was. Yeah,
Did you have some hope when he limped off the field?
I don't remember that specifically, but probably at the time I was probably.
They had an end of the first half drive where they were just like dumping it off and checking it down, and they had Dearness Johnson in instead of him.
Uh-huh.
I was like losing my shit, and I thought it was a good game. And I was like, I cannot believe it's all a game like this.
All right, well, that's some good memories for you, Joe.
Well, we didn't have a championship recap from last year, so I thought Grant's interview would be a good opportunity to do that.
Oh, we have one. It's just still buffering.
Well, he's gone now.
Oh. Well, RIP Grant. I'm assuming he'll rejoin in a second, so we'll give him a second to rejoin.
Okay, so we'll move on to the picks now. Last week me and Parker each went 3-3. Hunter went 2-4. So I improved, or I guess I didn't improve my record, but I am now 26-10. Parker is 18-18, and our guest is 15-21. So still a healthy lead for me in the picks. We'll start with the highest point total of the week, which is I believe that's Nick and Hunter. That looks like a 208.5 spread here. 104.7 for Nick to 103.8 for Hunter. Very close matchup. 2 pretty good teams. Obviously this is a big bye week coming up, so bye weeks are going to factor in a lot to all these matchups. Nick is without AJ Brown on bye. Hunter a little bit worse. His wide receiver core takes a major hit with no Justin Jefferson or Gabe Davis, also no Tyler Higbee or Isaiah McKenzie. So Hunter is very thin at receiver for this week, so I'm going to take Nick. Nick needs a win. It was a disappointing performance this past week against me, and he needs a big bounce back win here. Hunter gets his first loss.
Yeah, Hunter, this is his second straight sort of tough bye week situation. So I'm assuming that he won't have many of those for the rest of the year. I think he was down Derrick Henry and some other stuff last week against Grant.
Derrick Henry, yeah.
And it showed, it affected his performance. So the fans are rightfully questioning the amount of depth that he's got. And so I agree with you. I'm going to take the favorite here. I'm going to take Nick. I think, at some point Hunter's luck's got to run out this year. And it might be this week when he's starting some third and fourth stringers. Although Jamal Williams should be fine as long as Swift doesn't play. So then it's really just like he's starting Curtis Samuel and Rondale Moore, which is not even that bad of a receiver duo. But I'll take Hunter, or I'll take Nick at almost full strength minus AJ Brown.
Yeah, I'll probably take Nick as well. It looks like Hunter's running pretty thin right now, and if Swift plays, then Jamal Williams it's going to take a hit and doesn't look like he has anyone with all the bye weeks to supplement that. So I'll take Nick.
Yeah, Nick's pretty much dominated this matchup all time. He's 10-6 and he's won the last 5. So don't want to pick against that. Nick going for 6 in a row against Hunter.
Just dominates that matchup. So moving on, our next matchup is the roommate battle between Morgan and Austin, a division rivalry. This is the first of 2 division games weeks. I should have mentioned. And so Hunter is a projected favorite, or Morgan's a projected favorite, excuse me, 107.6 to 99.6 for Austin. That would be 208.2. So Morgan's gonna be without starting quarterback Jalen Hurts. Austin, just Alexander Madison and Dallas Goedert. He needs to pick up a tight end, so I guess that total should be higher. But I'll take Morgan. I think obviously Jalen Hurts is a big loss. He has Trevor Lawrence in there. I think I generally believe in Trevor Lawrence, and even though Jalen Hurts is a big loss, Morgan's just so deep, top to bottom, that I think his team will outclass Austin's this week.
Yeah, I like your pick. I think Morgan's team is a little deeper as well. He's won the last 4 against Austin. Kind of had his number of late, and I don't see any reason that won't continue. I am concerned that he is going to be missing Jalen Hurts in this game. Playing Trevor Lawrence against a good Giants defense, you kind of set yourself up for a questionable game there. But Austin's had a lot of trouble streaming the quarterback position, as well as we documented in the group me. So it's hard for me to give him the advantage there. And I think Morgan's receivers and running backs are just enough better than Austin's that I give Morgan the advantage.
That's true. Can Austin get a better than 11-point performance this week from his quarterback? That's going to be a storyline to look for.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'll go ahead and I'll take Austin. I put this earlier in the year in the group me, but I think the easiest way to win is just to play against Morgan. So I'll go ahead and stick with that and take Austin.
Yeah, Morgan has gotten slightly better points against luck the last couple weeks, but the first few weeks were not pretty. And so our next matchup will be Parker here. He's playing Colin. Colin is a big projected favorite, 110.5 to 95.8. That comes out to 196.3. Parker without some key guys and Cooper Kupp, Devin Singletary, Darrell Henderson. Colin is without his starting quarterback and Josh Allen on bye this week. Also lost Hollywood Brown to injury last week. So Parker, we'll get started with your thoughts here.
Colin by 1 million.
Couldn't have seen that one coming. Grant.
Yeah, I'll also take Colin, even though I'm a little questionable about Matt Ryan, but I guess there might not be too many better options out there.
Yeah. I mean, not to get, I don't want to give Colin the kiss of death, so I'll take the over. That's under 200. I know obviously some big names missing from this matchup, but you got 2 really good, historically really good managers. Obviously Colin puts up a ton of points. And Parker's always, he's been playing some close matchups. So if Colin puts up a bunch of points, Parker will probably put up a bunch of points, and it'll come to, it'll come down to Monday night if either one of y'all have a Monday night player. Yeah, Colin is David Montgomery. So it'll probably come down to that. And I'll take the over here. Oh shit, I canceled out of that. So our next matchup is, it is yours, Grant. Sorry about that. I am disorganized here.
Grant is projected
you're playing Zach.
15-point favorite over Zach. I do like the team name change. Grant, we can get your thoughts first on your matchup.
Yeah, I mean, as my team name alludes to, is Diggs and Cook. Fear my Diggs and Cook are on bye, so I don't really have anything to fear. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say I probably would win this one in a blowout.
In a blowout, I like it.
In a blowout, yeah.
Yeah, I'll agree. Sorry about that. I accidentally exited out of y'all's window whenever I went to click on the matchup. But yeah, so I agree. I think too many losses for Zach. I don't think Zach has very good depth. I think his strength is he's carried by those top 3 that he has. And 2 of them are on bye. So I think that's way too much to overcome here. So I like Grant.
Yeah, I agree. I like Grant too. This is a pick not to get cute on. We'll give Grant the kiss of death confidently. I think, like we said, Zach without his two best players. Grant's at full strength. No reason to overthink it.
So now our next matchup, it's Dan and Ben. The bottom two teams in our preseason power rankings have actually impressed a little bit as of late. There's they're Dan's 3-3 and Ben's 2-4. Dan is projected 107.5 to 79.1 winner. That's 186.6 total. Dan will be without just his defense and Adam Thielen. Ben, a little bit bigger losses of Devonta Smith and Miles Sanders. Those have been two of his best players so far this year. And so Dan's been really good as of late. So I'll take Dan.
Yeah, this is another easy one. Ben without two of his best players and already has been kind of the lowest scorer in the league throughout the year. So yeah, I agree. Don't overthink this one either. Take Dan.
Yeah, take Dan as well. Just looking at the roster, I think, sometimes talent just wins out. So
a lot of chalk this week.
I was gonna say, it seems like I'm going to maintain my lead because the bye weeks have the bye weeks kind of make it interesting. But I think
a little lopsided.
Yeah, I think we're kind of due. We'll be due for one or two shockers, I think.
This is like maybe the least competitive week of projections I've ever seen.
Yeah. So our last matchup is me and Thomas. So right now I'm a big projected favorite, 105.6, 79.3. Thomas still has Kirk Cousins in his lineup on bye. So I would assume he'll have put in some starter who will put up 15. So I'm just gonna say Thomas is projected 94, which would basically bring the total to 200. So we'll just call the total 200, and I'm like a 10 point or 11 point favorite. Although Thomas says, he has Jimmy G on his bench. But Thomas has been known to not check his lineup before on Sundays and leave in an injured or on bye player. So hopefully he doesn't do that. But the total is 200. I think I have a feeling where Parker is going to go with this and probably Grant as well. So I don't want to curse my team. So I'm going to take the over here. There's a call out to my team to step up, not to play with your food. There's a game you should win, but they should put up points. I don't have any buys this week. I'm as full strength as I'm going to be with my current lineup, and so they need to put up some points this week. And so I'm going to challenge them to hit the over here.
I think that's a scared pick. Last time you came on this podcast and we're scared to pick your team. It came back to bite you and you lost the game. I
picked against my team last week and I don't won.
I know, but I'm talking about the time that you didn't want everyone to pick your team.
No, but I was taking the under. I'm taking the over here.
Okay, well, regardless, you're going to steamroll. This is easy. Don't overthink it. Team's peaking. Looks like your team's maybe one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the league right now, and Thomas is maybe the worst team in the league right now. So I'll take you.
I'm actually going to take Thomas. I think it's actually a pro that the Rams are on bye, so he has to bench Allen Robinson. So
that is true.
I'm gonna take that and ride that. So
he is starting
a receiver
that got traded to a team 2 days before the game. So
but the Saints don't have Lattimore, so it's just gonna be.
Oh yeah, Robbie Anderson. Yeah.
Why does Thomas have 3?
That's what I was gonna ask. He has 4 Cardinals pass catchers, and none of them are Hollywood or DeAndre Hopkins.
He has the number 3 through 7 options in the Cardinals passing game.
I mean, when you can take Cliff Kingsbury's number 3, 4, and 5 options, like you gotta go for it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all the picks, right?
Yeah. So that'll wrap up today's episode. Thank you to Grant for joining us this week, and thanks for tuning in. And remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see y'all next week.
This telecast is copyrighted by the NFL for the private use of our audience. Any other use of this telecast or of any pictures, descriptions, or accounts of the game without the NFL's consent is prohibited.